I want to first tell you how incredibly exciting it is to be here with you, here in Kansas. More than anything, our people thrive on inspiration and unity. And I think that Unity Coalition for Israel brings those two things. It brings inspiration and unity to our people. It unites all the forces that people that love Israel around the world, Jewish and non-Jewish. And it gives them a hope that there's a country out there that stands for reason, for medicine, for clean water, for a vision of humanity that is a better vision. And I think that you're out here in the middle of this great nation of America, and you're spreading that light of Israel, is helping Israel be a light unto the nations. And a light unto the nations, that's our raison d'etre. So I really want to tell you that more than anything, the other media, they'd love to talk about the darkness and the fear and the war. And there's so many studies that show that when people say the word Israel, they associate with it war and landmines and religious repression, and all those things are such lies. Because as Benjamin Netanyahu recently said, a line that I always use, which is that Israel is the shining star, freedom, a beacon of hope for the Middle East, for a better Middle East, and in many ways for a better world. So for me, I'm very honored to be here with you, and I just want to take that second and say, wow, we've come so far in 65 years, from Israel's humble beginnings to where it is today, and the next 65 years are going to be more exciting, and we're going to hold hands across the Atlantic, across the globe, for this global mission of this country called Israel and this city called Jerusalem, which is a city that in the old world, just to say Jerusalem. I spoke to an Ethiopian who told me that his father, just as he was about to pass away, just said Jerusalem and Yishai, and his soul just left his body. All of cartography, ancient cartography, was based on drawing the Terra Sancta, the Holy Land, in Jerusalem, and that Jerusalem is back alive. And there's a Jerusalem that gives humanity hope that it was once sacked, and yet its phoenix riseth once again. Is to be in the time of that inspiration, to be able to share that inspiration with others, I think is a great testament to the vision of God, to the vision of our people, and to people like yourself who are links on that great chain. So I want to tell you how honored I am to be with you. Arabs in Israel have the greatest opportunity in the Middle East to show that there's a way to coexist, to have liberal values. What I mean by liberal is to believe in liberties, to believe in the value of liberty, to believe in the value of every human being. Oftentimes, our country is called, today it is in fashion, in vogue, to call Israel an apartheid state. Just the other day, I was at the Western Wall with my brother-in-law from New York, and I said to him, "Do you see those 4 cops there with the guns standing around and talking?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Do you know what language they're speaking?" He said, "No." I said, "They're speaking Arabic." Those are 4 Arab policemen in the Jewish state, with guns, and with insignias of the Jewish state. Apartheid state, the one that has Arab Knesset members in it, the one that has Arab Supreme Court justices, the ones that have great Arab surgeons, and the state that lets Arab women drive. I always want, when I see Arab women taking driving lessons, I want to stop them and say, you can't do this in Saudi Arabia, right? There's no women driving lessons in Saudi Arabia. So freedom, that's our middle name. And so the preposterous attempt of the media to paint Israel as the one, and the media and the United Nations and many other groups, to paint Israel as the one pariah state, the apartheid state, is the biggest farce in the world today. Where Israel is exactly the opposite, the one state that guarantees freedoms. And the states around us, they are the states that have instituted apartheid. Places like Syria, which has killed who knows how many, tens of thousands of its own citizens, who has a war against the majority Sunnis in that country, who has put Palestinians in camps and not let them even have things like birth certificates or driver's licenses. From Egypt, who has got an instituted hate against the Copts. From Jordan, who also has these Palestinian camps not letting their own brothers become citizens like themselves. And so, and on, and Saudi Arabia, which bars women from driving or Jews from showing up there. And we can just go on to talk about dehimitude and apartheid and all these things that actually exist in the Middle East. And the one country that has a vision to heal and to bring people back their self-determination of the self. The opportunities for people to have upward mobility and a normal life and health and clean water and farming and education, normal life. And it would behoove more leaders in the Middle East to stop making Israel the scapegoat and start seeing Israel for what it is, which is a shining light for the rest of the region. If we could just do away with hate, people can gain so much from learning from Israel and working with Israel. But in order to do that, Israel's got to take a step. It has got to crack down on the haters. In the Middle East, we have a saying, Hakam l'orgecha ashkem l'orgo. He who ariseth to kill you, you got to get up just a little bit earlier in the morning and get them first. You can't be a slacker in the Middle East. You can't wish it away. It's not standing in line in Kmart. Okay? It's not going to come to you by just because it's your natural right. In the Middle East, you got to assert yourself. You got to fight for it. You got to get those people who espouse the jihad against Israel. You got to get them because their first victim is always the moderate Arab. As Arafat once said, the bullets of the revolution are 10. 9 are for the collaborators. 1 is for the Zionists. Rescue moderate Arabs by asserting Israel's right, fight against the jihadis, fight against whatever the jihad may be, whoever may bring the idea that Israel should shrink. The jihad can come from different places. It may even come from the State Department. It could come from all kinds of places. It may come from Europe or from the UN. Fight. Be a light for people. Show courage. Without courage, without gumption, without audacity and stiff-neckedness, it ain't going to work. It's got to come from a place of knowing that we will never leave. We will not give up 1 inch of what's ours, because if you do give up that 1 inch, you've given up a lot more. You've given up your resolve, and you've empowered the haters. You got to push back on the haters. You got to know it's yours. You got to get them in their beds before they get up to get you. Yes, that has always got to be part of the story of Israel. Never again has got to mean something. And if Hezbollah is training 60,000 rockets against you, you get up before they get up and you get them. Because we can't allow 60,000 rockets to be trained against us. And if in Hamas there is an ideology that calls for the destruction of the Jewish people, you got to get those people. You can't let them talk that way even. And if there's a man in Iran who holds his people hostage, who suppresses his own people, and he does it on the edge of the sword, and then he goes out and tries to create a bomb against Israel, diagrams at the UN ain't going to cut it. You got to get them. That's the only way to survive. And it's the only way to gain the most important currency in the Middle East, which is respect. And when you're respected, you'll also be appreciated. And that's when the light of Israel can come through. And it's really that duality which Abraham had. He had his tent open to all 4 sides, and when any guests would come in, he would run to greet them, he would wash their feet, he would feed them the best food. And he was the gentlest and the most giving of all souls. And yet, when they kidnapped his nephew, Lot, he chased them till Damascus. And he fought war with them at night, and he bested them. That is the Middle Easterner. That's who we have to be. We have to be Abraham. Loving, giving, a light, and the fearless fighter to the very last for those people who hate us and threaten us again with another Holocaust. We cannot accept that, and that's what we mean by never again.
How do we clone you?
The answer is very simple. We educate. We have to educate. We have to educate. We have to educate to history. We have to educate to rights. And we have to educate to courage. Courage is not a natural occurring phenomenon. It is not a natural occurring phenomenon. It is a trained phenomenon. Courage does not come because people wake up and are courageous. The natural tendency of all mankind is to run away from the sound of explosions and to run away from danger. But then you have people who are first responders. How do firemen do it? Is it because they love fire? They're trained. They're trained. Soldiers are trained. Firemen are trained. Policemen are trained. And we have to train courage. We have to train our children. And we have to train passion. Because if the anti-Israel crowd is going to yell at the top of their lungs and say, you know, you're an apartheid state, and then we take out our cell phones and we say, look, I created the cell phone. Or you say something like, it's not occupied. It's at most it's what do we call it? What's the word that they use? It's not occupied land. It's disputed land. That's not exciting. That's not sexy. You got to make it sexy. And if you take away Hebron from the equation of what Israel is, and you make Israel into this, high-tech, kind of Holland in the Middle East, you've taken away a root in what Israel is. Israel is both Hebron and Tel Aviv. It's Eilat and it's the Hermon. It's farming in the Jezreel Valley and it's high-tech in Petach Tikva. It's the shrine of the book in Jerusalem, and it's anti-burn technology or pills that have cameras inside of them to unblock arteries at Soroka. We're all those things. We're all those things. That's what makes us sexy. We're Am Yisrael Chai. We're alive. We have different aspects to ourselves. We can never quelch the courage and the history and King David. You can't take that away. You got to make that part and parcel of high tech. And you got to make Israeli food and our beautiful Israeli people part and parcel with our Western Wall and our ancient ways and the Sabbath that we've brought to the world. Those are one, and we constantly try to make them divided. And you say, oh, I'm Tel Aviv, I'm not Jerusalem. Oh, I'm Jerusalem, I'm not Tel Aviv. I always tell people, well, those are sister cities. They give to one another. That's the dialectic between them, which makes our country so amazing. We have this and that. We have heaven and earth. And if you remember the story of the ladder, when Jacob saw the ladder, he saw a ladder whose head was in heaven, but whose feet were grounded on the earth. That's what a Jew is supposed to be, an Israeli. An Israeli's got to have lofty ideas, but they've got to have feet on the ground to make it happen. That's our mission, and we can't do it without the most important thing of them all, which is Jewish education. You can't do it without Jewish education. You got to educate. You got to pass it down. That's what the Pesach, that's what the Seder table is all about, passing it to the next generation. You can't do without it. And the other thing is unity, and that's where the Unity Coalition for Israel comes in. You got to have unity, first and foremost amongst the Jewish people, but amongst also the lovers of Israel worldwide. And lastly, you need courage. You need courage. You need fearlessness. You need to understand that the enemies of Israel, they are merchants of fear. That's their greatest asset. They're merchants of fear. They prey on the weak and the helpless. They broadcast their fear through terrorism. They strike at the ignorant. They strike at the weak. They use falsity and false claims and lies to the utmost. They propagandize because they have no anchoring in truth, so they could say anything, like calling Israel an apartheid state, where nothing could be further from the truth. And so, they are very excited to undermine Israel. We got to get passionate to undermine them and to broadcast our story and to be a light unto the nations.